Hello and welcome to the Snowflake Spotlight. I'm your host, Caveman Only, and this is a podcast series where I interview one unique Iron Man in the old school RuneScape community each episode, diving deep to examine the intricacies of their special Snowflake account. For today's episode, I have with me an infamous man in the Snowflake Iron Man community. He's not a content creator, but he's the guy who helps me put together my progress videos, and he may just have one of the craziest accounts and goals you've ever heard of, Mr. UIM Herblore. Mr. Herblore, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this interview is going to be a little bit different than the ones I've done in the past, I imagine, because you were actually the first person to be on the podcast who is not an area-restricted snowflake. So, if you're not an area-restricted snowflake, tell us, what are you?
Right, yes. I am UIM Herblore. You can feel free to call me James if that's a bit of a mouthful. And I am going for an untrimmed Herblore cape on an Ultimate Iron Man.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. Because not only have I never seen or heard of a regular Iron Man having an untrimmed Herblore cape, but you're trying to do it on an Ultimate Iron Man, which is absolutely incredible. So, we'll get into the details of the account here in just a moment. But before we get started, of course, let's start off with a bit about you. So tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you hail from? And obviously you like to play RuneScape, but what else do you do aside from RuneScape?
Well, I'm from the United Kingdom. I know you like asking how the weather is in people's...
Right, yeah. So usually I start off these podcasts by asking how the weather is in, X area that you restrict yourself to, but you're not restricted anywhere, so I don't know what to say. So I guess how's the weather in England?
Cold and bleak, as per usual.
Lovely. Well, and so tell me about what else you like to do aside from RuneScape. Tell me about some of your other hobbies and things you like to do in your free time.
I'm quite big into cooking. I love making everything that I eat from scratch, and I draw the occasional silly thing and post it on Twitter or Reddit, and some people seem to like that, so...
Yeah, that's cool. I love your art, for one. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're not a proper content creator because you don't really post videos on YouTube and you don't stream, but I would consider those people who do that, kind of like the lead actors, in a film, but you're more of kind of like a behind the scenes guy, or maybe like a supporting actor. So although you don't create content yourself, you make art, and you also help out, for one, me. You're the guy who helps me put together my progress videos by collecting all the footage for me to use so I don't have to go through and find it myself. But you're also known to help some other creators in the community as well. And in particular, I know of one instance in which you helped Kemp Q with a certain scenario that he was going for. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. I couldn't tell you when I had the idea, but so I'd recently acquired the herb sack, which costs 750 Slayer points, and it can store 30 of each of the major grimy herbs.
Right, of course.
And I thought, if you could just somehow bring birds' nests with you, you could make brews anywhere. And there's actually a herb box that you can get from turning in mold parts to Weiss and the Gardener in Falador. And if you bring that herb box, a pestle and mortar to crush them, humidify so that you can fill your vials, and you bring the herb sack full of toad flax, you can bring, or you could at the time, bring 30 extra 3-dose brews wherever you went.
That is a big brain move right there.
Yeah, and obviously these things have been in the game for donkey's years. I have no idea how long all these things have been in the game, but they were definitely all there when I started playing. I just thought, who would find this useful? Because most people probably wouldn't. Most people can actually do the Inferno. So I thought it's probably going to be much more useful for someone who's more limited. So I sent Kemp a message on Twitter because I know he likes making weird PKing accounts that have arbitrary restrictions, which this entire community is built around, really.
Of course. Hence the name Snowflake. But yes, continue.
And yeah, he went and he got the Infernal Cape. And I think at some point he mentioned this method in Boaty's Twitch chat. And from then on, I think someone must have searched for it and found a video that someone else had made like a month earlier that had the same concept, but like 3 views or something, and then just posted it on Twitter and on Reddit, and it exploded, and it got patched out within the day. So
yeah,
you can't
well,
do
I
that
mean,
anymore.
yeah, I mean, well, first of all, that makes sense because that's a little broken for something like the Inferno, but
Well,
I mean,
not just
not just the
the
Inferno,
Inferno.
but any high end PVM where you can
Yeah,
effectively have, you know, like 30 extra brews in your inventory at any given time.
It's basically a pack yak, which is already brokenly overpowered in RS3. So effectively having one in old school is just not really acceptable.
Yeah. So, in other words, you know, you've done some work and you've worked with some other content creators kind of behind the scenes without properly, you know, making content yourself. Now, on the topic of other things that you like to do outside of RuneScape, you mentioned that you're quite the chef as well. And a viewer question for you from Mr. Wappy, and I think it's quite a topical question as well. He asks, which herb is your favorite of all for your fantastic cooking?
Ooh, that's
Interesting question, but I suppose it's fair given that you are UIM Herblore, so give it a shot.
Yeah, not what I expected. It really depends on what kind of flavor profile you're trying to build and what cuisine you're working with.
Oh, flavor profile, very very advanced terminology.
If I had to pick one, I'm gonna have to say flatleaf parsley because it can be used in so many things that less mild herbs can't really be used in.
Okay, flat leaf parsley. I mean, I know parsley. I don't really know exactly what the qualifier of flat leaf parsley means exactly, but okay, cool.
Right. Yeah, flatleaf is Italian parsley, and you can also get curly leaf, which is French.
Interesting. Okay, well, hey, now you know. Herblore's favorite herb is Italian parsley. Great. So, moving on from a bit of your personal background stuff. Tell us a little bit about your RuneScape background and when you started. So I know that you're relatively new to old school in the grand scheme of things. So tell us about how you started.
Yeah. I was first exposed to it during Classic, so I know some things from Classic, but I didn't really play it back then. I was far too young.
Sure.
It didn't hold my attention. But I started playing properly, I think, in around 2005, and my first account is still sitting there on RS3. Still never had a 99. That's really weird to think about. I've never had a 99, and I'm going for this one first.
That you have set the bar quite high for yourself here. So,
I heard about old school RuneScape from someone that I knew outside of the internet, and he told me about it, and I had a look at it, and I didn't make an account.
Okay. Very anticlimactic, but
yeah, I know. I was at university at the time, and I knew how much of a grind the game could be, and I really didn't want to put myself in for that when I was trying to get my degree. So
yeah, of course.
So I didn't make an account, but I held it in the back of my mind, and I started watching some videos from content creators on YouTube. And when I had time, and that wasn't very frequently, but when I had time, I would also watch the occasional Twitch streamer, and I saw UIM Link's video, which is a day in the life of an Ultimate Iron Man. And if you haven't seen that, you really should watch it right now.
Yeah.
Well, not right now. Finish the podcast.
Right. Okay. Sure. Gotcha. But yeah, I know of Link. Big fan, of course.
Yeah. So I saw his video, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to make an Ultimate Iron Man, because if I can't play and I just drop the game because I just don't have time, no one will blame me because it's an Ultimate Iron Man.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, that makes sense. I guess it's kind of like your insurance for if you can't take the heat, you know, you got to get out of the kitchen, but no one will blame you because it's a dead game mode anyway, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the first one that I made, I was a hoarder. I couldn't drop anything. I still had my tinderbox from Tutorial Island, like 30 hours in. I couldn't bring myself to drop anything. So I dropped the game for a bit. And I still watched the videos, and I tuned into the streams, and it was in Link's stream where I was coerced, let's say, into making a new account, which is the one that I'm on today.
Coerced in what manner? Coerced seems like a rather strong word. So what instigated the creation of UIM Herblore?
Well, initially it wasn't UIM Herblore. It was just trying to get me back into the game because there was all this cool content that was coming out that I had never tried, and
Sure.
you should try it. So I made a new Ultimate Iron Man, and I got to something like 40 base melee stats and a few other things, and I had to put it down for exams or something. Can't quite remember. It was a few years ago. But in Link's streams, he was starting the maxing grind, I think, and he was trying to train Herblore, and he was complaining the whole time. He was saying, "This is an awful skill. Ultimate Iron Man really can't do this. It's so poorly built for us."
Well, he's kind of got a point. But...
Yeah, he hated the skill. He burnt out from the game because of Herblore, I'm pretty sure, because he was enjoying all the other skills. He left Herblore till last. He did it. He burnt out. I'm 100% sure that was the reason. But yeah, it just started as a joke in the Twitch chat that I would go for 99 Herblore first on my Ultimate Iron Man, and he laughed at me. So that kind of cemented it in my mind that this is something I'm going to achieve to prove him wrong.
Well, wow, sounds kind of familiar. Something that starts off as a meme now has turned into a dream. So don't let your memes be dreams, folks. But wow, so now you are on the road to become the first person to try and achieve an untrimmed Herblore cape on an Ultimate Iron Man. As I prefaced with, like, probably one of the craziest goals that I've ever heard of from anyone, like, ever. Because anyone who's played an Iron Man of any type for any amount of time knows that Herblore inherently is one of the last skills that you train all the way up to 99 if you choose to do that. Usually Herblore requires just so many other things to be done first, whether it's, farming a ridiculous amount of herbs or getting them through PVM or doing endgame hunter for something like Herbivore to gather your herbs. But which is part of the reason why it takes so long. But you are trying to obviously get that to 99 first. And we'll go into that in great detail here during the podcast. But yeah, so what started as just a meme in Link's Twitch chat and almost a dare, it kind of sounds like. Now all of a sudden we are into a grind that has taken you how long so far? How long have you been playing the account?
I went to Hans and I checked because I thought you'd ask this. I have 1,922 hours played on my account in the past 2 years or so.
In the past 2 years, okay, that's a lot of hours. Yeah. And I think that the natural follow-up question to that is, what is your current Herblore level?
Right now it's 78. I do have the herbs for 79. And if my motherboard didn't die and make it so that I couldn't play RuneScape for the past week or two, I would probably have the herbs ready to get 80, which I was planning to do before this podcast. But
well, still, just to put that in perspective, all of those hours and 78 Herblore is what you have. Now, that's not to say that that's not a feat in and of itself, because it really is. But quite clearly, I mean, anyone who plays RuneScape knows about the exponential experience curve for leveling, and so you still got quite a journey ahead of you.
Yeah.
Now, I can't really do the math in my head because, well, I don't know. It's getting late, and math is not my forte. So, what does that equate to in terms of XP per hour?
Up to this point, it's probably somewhere between 800 and 900 experience an hour. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is more tragic than I was expecting, to be honest with you. Because I knew it was slow, but historically that is pretty woeful.
I didn't know what to expect when I spoke to Hans, because, as I say, I'm at something like 1.7 million experience.
Right.
And seeing that it's 80 days online is just
wow. Yeah, now, in your defense, 78 Herblore sounds like, oh, well, it's not really that big of a deal, especially to a normal account, with it being a buyable, but it is your highest stat.
Yeah.
And for Herblore to be your highest stat as a mid-game Ultimate Iron Man is a feat in and of itself, to be honest with you. Really, no matter what level you are, as an Iron Man, to have Herblore be your highest stat is something to be said. But to have 78 Herblore as your highest stat on an Ultimate Iron Man, so far, already, that's a feat in and of itself. So props to you. And obviously, I don't need to really say it, but you have quite a long way to go, and we'll talk about how you plan on getting there. Now,
yeah.
I did hear you mention at the beginning that when you first made this account, that it wasn't UIM Herblore. So
No.
what did it start off as, and how much planning has really gone into your goal now?
Well, at the start, I just made it as a way to waste time. It was
Right.
something to do after I finished my exams, or something to just mess around with when I had free time. So I didn't really have a goal for the account. I was just playing like you would have done back in 2007, really, just aimlessly.
Sure, yeah.
So when I started this, as I say, I was watching Link on the max grind when he was training Herblore and complaining about it, and that's what pushed me to do this. So I'd seen the ways that he was doing Herblore and some other content creators, the way that they were doing Herblore, and my mindset was basically get to the point where I can do what they're doing, because what they're doing is the efficient way to do it. And
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, most things that make sense at first turn out to be the worst idea you could have.
Okay, sure.
So there's a very good reason that Link found the method that he was doing to be unbearable.
Well, what was his method?
He was just staying at the Slayer Tower in Mauritania, killing aberrant specters over and over and over, and then just using up the herbs when he got a lot of them, and then he would go back and he would kill aberrant specters over and over and over. It's not fun.
Yeah, that sounds pretty terrible.
Yeah. So variety is the spice of life, and after I don't know how long killing specters, I think my kill count is still less than 1,000 or something. But after not very long, I decided I need to look into other ways to do this, because I'm not going to finish this the way that I'm doing it. So I started looking into other methods and how to get herbs in more efficient ways in terms of my end goal. So getting herbs for as little other experience as possible. And since then, I've found out a lot of things. I've had a lot of things pointed out to me by very helpful people. And I've come up with a few things of my own. So
yeah, now the one thing that I really find quite fascinating about your account, so when you first just think about what you're doing on the surface level, it doesn't seem that complicated. Okay, well, you're just trying to get 99 Herblore first. Okay, just farm your way there, or kill creatures that drop herbs, and just do it. But when you think about it, it's not that straightforward, and your account actually requires a lot of planning and also a lot of math, because as you mentioned a moment ago, it's not just about getting Herblore XP, but it's about how you can get herbs in the most efficient manner that gives you like the least amount of experience in other skills possible.
Yeah. So a good thing to compare it to is the first person to get an untrimmed Slayer Cape. Because way back in the day, before anyone had the untrimmed Slayer Cape, people would have thought, there's no way you can do this. You get way too much experience in the combat skills. It just can't be done. And then someone did it, and now there are people doing it with lower and lower stats, and it's been solved. The problem has been solved. Anyone can get an untrimmed Slayer Cape if they put their mind to it. But this is something that hasn't been done before, so I'm trying to look heavily into what the most efficient way is to get as little experience for as many herbs for every skill. So I think my end goal is actually not just an untrimmed Herblore Cape, but a Herblore Cape with no other skill over level 90. And I'm pretty sure that that's achievable.
That's absolutely insane in my mind, because it's one thing to get an untrimmed Herblore Cape and you have a lot of stats that are very close, maybe 98s in your combat stats or in farming or hunter, but to try and do this without any other stat even being in the 90s is absolutely just insane. So again, most people who train Herblore, including myself on Caveman and previously on a main account, the obvious ways you train Herblore, well, one is through farming, where you just farm the herbs yourself and then pick them and use them. PVM, of course, both bossing and just regular, like Slayer content. Tons of, well, most monsters in the game these days have an herb drop table that you can accrue herbs from. And then with the recent addition of Fossil Island and Herblore, not too long ago, now you have some high-level hunter content that provides herbs. But from my understanding, you don't really do any of those methods.
Right. So when I made the account, it was well before Fossil Island was released, so Herblore wasn't even a consideration.
Okay.
I think for Hunter, my meta was going to be catching nature implings and looting those for the seeds that you get, and then planting the seeds. But I've since found out that there's a better way to get herbs with farming experience than actually farming seeds. So I've not planted a seed in almost a year.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is so counterintuitive to me, because obviously farming and Herblore are go hand in hand for most people, but for you, it doesn't make sense, because in terms of like efficiency, farming herbs gives way more farming XP than it does Herblore XP.
Well, not. I believe.
Perhaps maybe. Yeah, maybe that's not exactly true, but I mean, the gist of it is that you could get herbs in much other more efficient ways that don't give as much XP in a skill like farming.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't do any of these grand like usual methods, like what is your kind of go-to way of getting herbs?
Well, I have lots of ways of getting herbs. As I said, variety is the spice of life. If you grind one thing for too long, you will burn out eventually.
Yep, very true. Very true.
For most people, that's just an inevitability. So I've got a few ways. As I say, I don't plant herbs. Or don't plant seeds. I've got a better way to do that, and that is Sorcerer's Garden.
Okay.
You can run through.
Haven't thought about that piece of content in a very long time. Very dead. I love dead content, so this sounds right up my alley. Sorry, continue.
My account is all dead content, don't worry. But yeah, you can, for anyone unfamiliar, you run through the garden and you can either pick a fruit from the tree, which you can do stuff with to get thieving experience, or you can pick some herbs. And if you pick the herbs, you get 2 herbs and you get 50 farming experience, which means you're getting 25 experience per herb, which, I mean, you can get up to dwarfweed with this. So getting a dwarfweed for only 25 farming experience, that is a huge net gain for Herblore.
Yeah. Again, for those not familiar with Sorcerer's Garden, it's mostly meant to be a thieving minigame. You run through the garden, you pick the fruit, and you use a pestle and mortar, turn it into juice, and then turn the juice in for thieving XP. But first of all, nobody really does that for thieving in the first place. But on top of that, nobody especially does that for herbs. So that's absolutely wild. But that's, to go back to the point we were making earlier, in terms of experience efficiency, relative with Herblore relative to other skills, it makes a lot of sense, because as you said, you can get dwarfweed herbs from this minigame for drastically less farming XP than you would from actually like planting the seed and harvesting them yourself.
There's a lot of herbs that you can get from this, but yeah, I think all of them except the lowest few, it's better to do this than to farm seeds.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. Now, you mentioned you have other ways of gathering herbs, and I know there's one in particular that is quite innocuous, that you only discovered somewhat recently, if I recall correctly. Then it has to do with a quest. So talk to me about that method and how you discovered it and its utility for you.
Right. Okay. This isn't the Lunar Herblore method that I'm sure some people that are listening to this have heard of. But just outside the Grand Exchange to the west, there are some outlaws, and they play a role in the What Lies Below quest. You have to kill one of them for something or other. But they're there before the quest, during the quest, and after the quest. But because they're a quest monster, they give you reduced combat experience compared to what you would normally get, which is great news for me, because they actually have a common herb drop. So I can just go there, I get 2 experience and whatever attack style I'm using, and something like 0.6 hit points experience. And I can do that, and I can get a herb. So I can go there, I can gain 2,000 experience in attack and walk away with hundreds of herbs. So that is just excellent.
And to me, that is absolutely fascinating because it's so innocuous and it's there in plain sight, as you say, right there on the other side of the west wall of the Grand Exchange, and nobody interacts with this content because it's just a a trivial part of the What Lies Below quest that nobody hardly interacts with even in the quest itself. But these NPCs that remain there after the quest is done, that nobody pays attention to, is one of your best ways to gather herbs on your account to try and achieve your goal. And to me, that is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I think it's one of the fastest ways to do it that still gives experience in another skill.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea like what your approximate outlaw kill count is these days? Can you keep track of that? Do you know?
I know I've posted a picture of 2,500 kills, the Runelight Loot Tracker, on Twitter.
Sure.
But that's only in one session.
Just one session. Wow.
Yeah, because every week with the Thursday update, I have to restart the client, and I lose the loot tracker.
Right.
So I've got to be well over 10,000 at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. I mean, there must be no contest in terms of outlaw KC if it could be tracked. I imagine you're probably number one because again, it's like you wouldn't train on these monsters because they don't give you the regular combat experience. You get reduced experience because they're quest NPCs. And there's so many other ways to gather herbs that no one in their right mind would really kill these for herbs either. So that to me is one of the greatest things about Snowflake accounts is making use of dead content that you wouldn't otherwise use until you decide to arbitrarily limit yourself. For example, trying to get an untrimmed Herblore cape on Ultimate Iron Man. That's great.
I will mention as well that you've said more than once that I'm aiming to be the first one to do this, but the only reason that I'm aiming to be the first one to do this is because no one else is trying right now.
I imagine because this is a freaking ridiculous grind that you're on here.
Yeah.
And
there are far faster ways to get an untrimmed Herblore cape than what I'm doing. It's just because I added on that stipulation that I want to stay under level 90 and everything that it's taking me so long.
Okay. Yeah, and well, I mean, even if somebody manages to beat you to it, if you can manage to one-up those people by doing it with lesser stats, then that's it's an achievement worthy in and of itself. Now, so we've talked about Sorceress's Garden and these outlaws that you can kill just west of the Grand Exchange for herbs, but obviously there have to be more methods than that. So, do you have a particular favorite method aside from those for gathering herbs?
My current favorite is actually Barbarian Assault. The high gambles, the high tier gambles give 3 kinds of herb: Torstor, Snapdragons, and Renar. But they also give Limpwit Root and Unicorn Horns, which are noted, which is really useful for an Ultimate Iron Man.
Right, of course.
And it would be more efficient, as in more Herblore experience per point, so more per hour or whatever, to do the medium tier gambles. But I'm actually also getting some other resources that I need to unlock other methods from the high gambles. So
gotcha.
I'm sticking to that for now.
Okay, that's a really good point that you bring up because, of course, obviously the first thing you think of with Herblore is, well, how do you get the herbs? But that's only half the equation with potions, because you need secondaries as well. And so that was going to kind of lead me into the next topic here is how you go about gaining your secondary ingredients. But to get noted secondaries from Barbarian Assault gambles, again, quite unique. Most people do Barbarian Assault either for the diary or to get the fighter's torso. As a prerequisite before going to bandos or something, but not many people do the gambles aside from pet hunters, and so again, just another example of utilizing dead content to try and achieve your goal. So on the topic of secondary ingredients, you can get a few of them from these Barbarian Assault gambles, but in terms of the rest of your training, how do you go about gathering secondary ingredients for your training, especially as an ultimate?
Yeah. Okay. So every herb in the game, every major herb, has a secondary ingredient that you can get without gaining any other experience, except kind of dwarfweed. You technically can, but it's not viable.
Okay, with the Zami wines.
Yeah, because you can get Zami wines from clue scrolls, which you can do getting 0 experience, but that's really not viable.
A little complicated and convoluted, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I'd have to telegraph those, and that's my only way of getting them. But all other herbs, you can just pick the secondary up off the ground or buy it from a store. So there's really no limit to the number that I can get for my goal. So for example, whiteberries and jangaberries, you can pick those up. The whiteberries, there's a spawn in Tiranan, and jangaberries, there's one west of Yanil, or there's 4 west of Yanil. And you can actually note those on a tool leprechaun because they're a farmable item.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But
so that's
for
pretty
other
useful.
things, yeah. But for
yeah,
other
but
herbs,
for everything
like,
else, you can't.
Like lantidimes and Haralander and everything like that. It is just a loop of running between a bank and a shop, or a bank and a spawn, which it's not the most thrilling gameplay.
I could imagine. Yeah, so that must be where a lot of the difficulty lies, because obviously with herbs, you can note any herbs you want on a tool leprechaun because, well, they're all farmable. But with secondaries, you can only get so many of them noted. You said whiteberries and jangerberries, and then limpwort roots and unicorn horns from Barbarian Assault. But aside from that, it's basically just like looting them off the ground. And obviously, as an Ultimate Iron Man, you can't even pick them up and bank them to get like stored XP. So you're literally just like doing the same gameplay loop over and over and over again to train. And that sounds tedious is the first word that comes to mind.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I still have to run to a bank every time I go and pick up an inventory of them because I need to use herbs on the bank to unnote them.
Right.
So yeah, that's not it's not the most fun thing in the world.
Well, you're in the middle of it now, so you got to commit. I guess. Yeah. I mean, I guess you don't have to commit, but you know, for the sake of this podcast, you better commit.
Yeah, no, I still enjoy it. It's rewarding.
Well, yeah, that's good. Obviously, you have to enjoy it to some extent. Perhaps maybe not the gameplay, but maybe just the notion that you're the only one trying to do this at the moment that you and I are aware of, and that you're kind of forging new ground and creating your own new methods to do this.
Yeah. 2 other people have actually started accounts trying to go for the same goal that I'm aware of.
Oh, really? Does that provide you? Oh, I was going to ask if that provided any motivation for you to try and stay ahead of the curve there, but I guess if they both stop playing, then I guess you're back to being on your own.
One of them reached level 19 and the other reached level 4.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So, well,
I welcome the competition. If either of them is listening and wants to pick up the account again and try and get there before me, feel free to use all my methods or come up with your own. I welcome the competition.
All right. Well, I mean, that sounds like an open invitation, ladies and gentlemen. So it sounds like the pressure is on. So if you are up to a challenge, then make sure that you are really prepared for it, because this is no joke of a grind. Now, the other question that I have is obviously, you know, you have so much going on to collect these herbs and these you know, zany methods and your way of collecting secondaries mostly off of the ground. But so like your average Herblore training session, like on a regular day where you go to actually like train the skill to try and, you know, get another level, like what does that game session look like?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. Obviously with an Ultimate Iron Man, because I don't have a bank, if I'm geared up to do a certain piece of content, then I kind of have to do that content. Otherwise, I'm just going to waste an hour trying to gear up for a different piece of content.
Right.
So if I'm grinding Barbarian Assault, then I will log on. I will play Barbarian Assault. I will log off. Whereas there are some things that I can hop between. So if I'm killing outlaws, then I can just drop that at any time and go do something else, because the only thing that I need for that is just a weapon. But there's other things that do require a bit more of a setup. But for the most part, it's literally just get some herbs, put them in my herb sack. When my herb sack is full, I go to a tool leprechaun and I note them all and repeat.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously it's quite repetitive. As an ultimate and doing what you're doing, what would you say is the worst prep that you have to do for any particular task? Whether it's actually training the skill or perhaps maybe doing a clue scroll or something like that. Like, what's the worst prep you have to do for any given task?
Right. I would say that the worst prep is actually Barbarian Assault, which is why I've been sticking to it.
Okay.
For the most part, because you can't bring in runes or arrows or a rune pouch or food or a rock cake or just
sure. Yeah,
so
a
many
whole
items.
plethora of things. Sure.
Yeah, so many items that I use for other things. And you also need a certain number of open inventory slots to actually even be able to start the minigame. Most of my time, if I'm preparing for Barbarian Assault, is just clearing space and getting rid of things that are really useful and that I want to keep, but that I can't.
Yeah, I mean, that's another great topic to ask, too, that I kind of wish I would have asked previous Ultimates on the podcast before. But especially because you don't stream or make videos, I think it's quite pertinent to ask you, what does your inventory look like? Most ultimates, have obviously other storage items to help with inventory management. So talk to me about like what important things you have in your inventory or some things that you might not have.
I used to have a seed box, but as I think I mentioned, I don't farm seeds anymore. I actually lost that at level 38 wilderness when I got PK'd doing a clue.
Well, I'll ask you why you're in the middle of the wilderness on an ultimate trying to do a clue scroll that doesn't really seem that pertinent to your account, but we'll get to that later.
yeah. So yeah, I lost a lot of things doing that, but I lost the seed box as well, and I wasn't about to go and grind Tithe Farm for another one.
Yeah.
But when I can at all help it, I will not use a looting bag.
That's big, because obviously, like pretty much every ultimate in 2019 has a looting bag, because really what the game mode has kind of devolved into is like trying to figure out how many ways and mechanics that you can abuse as like storage in order to like help progress your account there. But not using a looting bag is a pretty bold choice. So is that like a morality thing? Like are you just trying to prove a point that you can do this and other people can't? Or is there some other more like, I don't know, logistical reason for not having one?
There's a few reasons. One of them is that it's on the list of items that you just can't bring into Barbarian Assault. So
oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense considering how much BA you need to do.
Yeah. So obviously, if I can't bring it in, then I don't want to have so many items that I need one to be able to do anything, because what am I going to do with those items if I want to go into BA? So firstly, there's the Barbarian Assault thing. Second, I just don't typically have so many things that I need one. I can get by with only 2 or 3 inventory slots, because all I need them for is to pick up a herb and then put it into my herb sack.
Okay, that's fair, I suppose.
But there's a few things that Ultimate Iron Man do that I can't come up with a logical reason why I don't like them, but I don't like these things, and I wouldn't do them myself.
Okay,
it doesn't feel right to me.
I mean, different strokes for different folks, I guess. But especially given what you're doing, I would have thought that you used a looting bag, if not just for like training, like if you're trying to pick up secondaries to make potions in a given session, you might go pick up a looting bag first and try and store some things to free up some more inventory slots. But
no, I will, as I say, occasionally get one if I'm doing, say, a quest that needs 13 open inventory slots for this one section. Sometimes it's just unavoidable. I can't clear enough space, like in 200 hours, to be able to do this piece of content. So I will get one for the time that I need it, and then I will get rid of it as soon as possible.
Okay, well, I mean, hey, I suppose that's respectable. I mean, it obviously makes what you're doing, I think, like 10 times harder. Not having that extra inventory available to you for storage purposes.
Obviously, there's 14 herbs, and I've got all the kinds on me at all times, so that's just half my inventory wiped out just with that.
That like almost it almost gives me like claustrophobia thinking about that. That like you just run around with only like half your available inventory slots all the time. That I don't know. To me that's just a little claustrophobic. But
it's not even half, because I still have the herb sack, I have ramen stuff because I can't get a quest cape, so I can't do the Lumbridge diary. I've got a hard clue that I've had for probably 6 months that I need to grind some medium clues to get an item to be able to finish it.
Right. Okay. So yeah, on the topic of clue scrolls, let's go there for a moment.
Yeah.
Because to me, like I don't understand why you'd even want or need to do clue scrolls on your account in the first place. Because like they don't give herbs or secondaries, and so I don't know. Am I missing something? Like especially to risk it for the biscuit way out in the frickin' middle of the wilderness where you died and lost a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Like what is the point of clue scrolls for you?
Avoiding the wilderness is why I'm holding on to this hard clue, because it's the last step and it's not a wilderness step, so I'm keeping it because I'm guaranteed to finish it. But yeah, because all my stats are low kind of by design, I can't really get new gear very easily by making it. And I also can't really get it from high-end PVM. I can't just go kill XYZ boss that drops black dragonhide chaps or something. So
okay, that makes
I do
more
the
sense.
clue scrolls. Yeah, I do the clue scrolls for that chance of getting just a new best in slot item that's going to speed up this grind or that grind by an amount.
Interesting. Okay, so that does make more sense that you're using clues as a way to essentially like obtain armor that helps you kill things more efficiently.
Yeah, like for example, my best in slot chest piece for ranged is a green dragonhide body, because you can just buy that from a shop. But that's really quite terrible, and I'm trying to kill things with a cannon, which scales like its accuracy off of your
ranged attack accuracy, right?
So I really need something better than that. So I'm doing clues to try and find something more acceptable.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, again, that's just something that is so counterintuitive to me because I mean, unless you're a clue scroll only Iron Man, you know, like Mr. Only Trails, who I'd like to have on the podcast eventually. Obviously, he does clue scrolls to try and get gear because that's like the point of the account. But no one else really tries to do that except for, you know, maybe like, you know, the obvious ranger boots for medium clues. But aside from that, no one really tries to to actively get all of their gear from clue scrolls as upgrades. But it makes sense because, I mean, for the most part, most clues, unless they have some kind of skill requirement for a step, don't really involve that much experience. So for you, they're kind of efficient to try and get gear that you wouldn't otherwise be able to through like making it, for example.
Yeah, there's a few steps obviously that have some combat requirement, or there'll be a Sherlock step where I have to do a thing, and if I can do that, then great. But yeah, for the most part, it's basically 0 experience, and it gives me the opportunity at least to get something that could be best in slot. So
yeah, okay, yeah, that makes more sense to me now. And another thing that's like, I guess it's sort of in a similar vein would be quests. Now, you mentioned that you have the Drummond staff on you because you won't be able to finish the Lumbridge diary to be able to use fairy rings without it. So in terms of just questing in general, how do you decide what quests to do and when? And are there any quests that you can't do that you wish you could do?
Right. Okay. Most of the quests that I do because either they have a little experience reward for Herblore, or because they will unlock some new method that I need to use a herb more efficiently. So I did a lot of the Mauritania quest line to be able to make Blamish oil because it's the best experience you can get per Haralander.
Okay.
So some I will do because of a piece of gear that it gives you. For example, I have half completed Legends quest so that I have access to the Holy Water, which is a ranged weapon you can use against demons.
Yes.
Just for Fashionscape, because you're walking around holding a potion. That's perfect for me.
Right, yeah. Okay.
For quests that I wish I could do, Lunar Diplomacy is definitely on the list. Now, I'm not holding off on that so that I can do the broken Lunar Herblore method, which we can talk about in a bit. I'm holding off on it because it has a quest reward of runecrafting experience, and currently there is no way in game to gain herb experience by runecrafting, so I am leaving that at level 1. 0 experience for as long as I can.
Okay.
Um,
Props. Me too. So respect to the one rune crafting grind.
Yeah, Lunar Diplomacy, though, would be such a convenient thing to be able to do. Because if you have Lunar Diplomacy unlocked, you can use the Lunar Spellbook, and you can cast Humidify.
Mm-hmm.
And casting Humidify to fill a water skin is one of the Desert Hard Diary requirements. And the Desert Hard Diary lets you go to Zahur in Nada and turn herbs into unfinished potions, which would cut down on the time and the tedium of making potions so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I just can't do it unless they come out with some way to gain herbs by runecrafting. Maybe when Zalkana comes out.
Oh, the new what do you call it? Skilling boss with Prifddinas that they've talked about.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be. It's not really like a rune crafting or mining training method, but the rewards, I suppose, very well could contain some herbs for you. So I guess if that's the case, then you'd actually do Zalkano and try and get herbs that way.
Absolutely. I nearly have all the all the skill requirements for the Song of the Elves quest.
Okay.
If it does turn out that you can get herbs from Zalkano, that is excellent, because it's very bad experience by design. They want it to be low experience but high reward, so that fits perfectly into my mindset. But if it doesn't give herbs, I'll probably still unlock Prifddinas, because I don't know, it might make things a little bit easier when I'm collecting white berries, which I have to go and note in Letia. I don't think it will, but it might have some teleport item or something.
Wow. So there's a lot of writing on that. So I mean, if Zalkano gives the ability to grant herbs as a reward, that means that you could then have a way of gaining herbs through a roundabout runecrafting method, which would then incentivize you to possibly finish Lunar Diplomacy for that runecrafting XP. That way you have access to that Lunar Herblore method. So you said that you'd go into little detail about that.
Yeah, the Lunar Herblore method is actually one of the steps in the quest. So you'd start it, but you wouldn't finish it.
Oh.
But what it does, this is one of the reasons that I really don't like it, is it's a quest step that you can only do during the quest. So it feels like it's content that should only ever be interacted with once.
Yeah, okay. That's a little broken. I didn't realize that. But anyway, tell me about what that's about.
So there's a point in the quest where you have to make the Dream Potion, and you use a Guam and a Marantil, which are the two lowest tier herbs, to start the Dream Potion. I have no idea if that actually finishes the Dream Potion. I've never made the Dream Potion. But it gives you 186 experience in Herblore for putting those two herbs into that vial.
What?
And yeah, I know.
That seems a little broken for those like garbage tier herbs.
Yeah, it's the lowest tier herbs. If you're making an attack potion, you get 25 experience for Guam, and an anti-poison, I can't remember, it's 30 something, but this quest turns them all into 80 something experience.
Wow, that's I mean, could you say that this changes everything?
When it came out, sorry, I'm not sure how much experience I said it was for the potion. I think it's 168. I think I said 186.
Okay, yeah, well, whatever, it's fine. But still, a lot of experience for those two herbs.
Yeah, it was pretty meta changing for most Ultimate Iron Men when it became publicly known. And there are people out there now that have like 10,000 Guam and 10,000 Marantil because they want to use this to get to 80 Herblore. It just doesn't sit right with me. When you're actively grinding it, it's 40,000 experience an hour. And it just doesn't feel like it's something that should be abusable to me. So I won't do it.
Okay, yeah. So I mean that definitely sounds like, with the looting bag, you had some logistical concerns with not being able to bring it into BA, but this sounds more like a moral concern.
And I'm not going to knock anyone that does it. Anyone that does it, fair play. You're leveling your account in a way that has nothing to do with me. go for it. You're not doing anything wrong. This has been brought up to JMods. They're fine with it. It's fine. I'm not going to knock you for it. I just personally, I don't like it.
And that's fair. And on the topic of other things that have been meta changing, particularly for Herblore, for Ultimates, was the update from, I don't know, maybe a few months back, where they changed the way that decanting potions works at the Grand Exchange.
Yeah.
Can you give us a SparkNotes version of that and your opinion on that as well?
Okay. There is an NPC at the Grand Exchange in the southwest corner that you can speak to with potions in whatever dosages you have. You can speak to him, and if you have a few coins, if you need more vials, he will just decant all your potions to whatever level you want. Now, what makes this interesting for Ultimate Iron Man is if you go up to him with 4-dose potions, an inventory full of 4-dose potions, and you ask him to turn them into 1-dose potions, he can't do that and leave them unnoted, because that would be 4 times the capacity of the inventory. So he takes your money, he takes your potions, and he gives you back noted potions.
Oof.
Which, yeah, completely meta-changing for all endgame PVM.
Yeah, you weren't able to get noted potions on Ultimates before this, were you?
Well, you can technically get them from clue scrolls, certain ones.
On
like the 3rd age rarity table.
Yeah,
okay,
if you want to be technical about it. But practically, there was no other way for you to get noted potions on Ultimates before this. So this was pretty revolutionary, and perhaps maybe not the right direction to go for the game mode. But
you did used to be able to get noted brews from Zora, but they got rid of that because it was overpowered.
Right. So if that was overpowered, then what does that make this? I'm really not sure.
Exactly. Actually, I think they removed that and replaced them with bird's nests because the price of brews got too low. I think. I can't remember. But yeah, it massively changed the meta for endgame PVM. It didn't affect me as much as you'd expect because for the most part, I still drop my potions. It's not worth keeping 5,000 1-dose attack potions.
Yeah.
Just for anything. But it has enabled me to do certain things that I wouldn't have been able to do before. Like I can note super energy potions, which I can then later, after I've done some agility, turn into stamina potions. So that's
okay.
It doesn't change anything really for me in the long term because the net result is the same. I've made so and so many stamina potions. But in the short term, it does just let me get a little bit more experience to maybe push me over the threshold for a level. But that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very gray area because, well, I mean, you're an example that you choose not to do the Lunar Diplomacy Herblore method because it just doesn't feel right to you. But this Grand Exchange potion noting method, it seems like you're okay with to an extent.
No, I absolutely hate it. I don't think it should have ever been added to the game, but I also think that it's too late for them to remove it because it would give the people that have already made 1,000 super combat potions a massive advantage over the people that haven't reached that level yet. So I think it should never have been added, but now that it's there, I don't think they should get rid of it.
Okay, so you think it's fair game to be used?
Yeah, because I think that it shouldn't be removed. I have no issue with using it. Well, I don't like using it, but I will use it for the super energy thing if I just need to push myself over a level.
Sure. But, and I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, again, it's like, it's a very gray morality area.
Yeah.
And
saying that I don't like using it, but I'll use it for this thing only does make me feel a little hypocritical. But
you're playing a Snowflake. Iron Man, and where everything's made up and nothing really matters. So,
just call it my only exception.
Sure. Okay. There you go. Yeah. If you have one exception, then I think that is appropriate and fitting. One question that I hate to ask you because I know it's probably a sensitive subject, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How long do you anticipate it taking you to actually achieve 99 Herblore? From now.
Oh, God.
I know, touchy subject.
Me.
But
this question follows me everywhere.
If I don't ask it, people are going to ask why I didn't ask it. So it has to be asked.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Ballpark figure. Are we talking
Ballpark figure?
Months, years, decades, millennia? What are we talking about?
It is possible with the methods that I currently have and the hours that I currently play for me to get it by the end of the year, assuming I don't have any more computer issues.
Seriously?
I am not going to get it by the end of the year.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Okay.
I was like, there can be no way that you actually are gonna get it by the end. Like, is that playing 24 hours straight, or like how many hours is that approximately? Do you know?
I think over the lifetime of my account, I have averaged about 3 hours a day. So I was using 3 hours a day as my figure.
Okay. Well, I mean,
it is possible. It is possible through the most grindy, boring, and click-intensive methods that I will not want to do for 3 hours a day for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible. I'm not going to do it.
Okay, well, to be honest with you, that was a lot shorter of a window than I was expecting. But as you say, and as it is just kind of intuitive, as you level, you get access to higher tier potions that give more experience. And as you level your skills and stuff too, obviously you're able to obtain herbs faster. So it just kind of makes sense that the skill should get a bit faster as you go on.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm not getting it by the end of the year. I could say that I'll get it next year, but I don't have 2020 vision.
Oh, guys. Okay, you're not getting paid any extra for these awful puns, but I'll accept it.
It popped into my head. I had to say it.
Oh, it's acceptable. It's acceptable. One final viewer question here from Wappy. Once again, he wants to know what herb drop or loot gives you the most dopamine.
Ooh, it's a good question, because obviously for most things, when I'm actually grinding something, I'm expecting to get herbs like every other kill.
Right, of course.
For monsters, or after a known amount of time for certain other things, like pest control. But yeah, I think it would have to be something where I'm doing something where I don't have the expectation of getting the herbs. So Barbarian Assault gambles are a good one, because it's only 3 and 32 to actually get the herbs.
Okay.
Another one is the Prison Pete random event, because that could just happen at any time when I'm doing anything, and that has a chance to give snapdragons and toadflax and maybe something else that I can't remember. Or something like, if I randomly catch a magpie imp and it gives me a Sinister Key, that is a good day.
Okay, Sinister Key. Well, again, as a self-proclaimed underground Iron Man, I haven't accessed this content in a very long time. Though I guess technically, from my recollection, it is underground. But for my sake and for the listeners' sake, give us the TLDR there. The Sinister Key, what is it? Where do you use it? And what use does it have for you?
Yeah, so the Sinister Key opens a chest in the Yanil Agility Dungeon, which gives you 2 Harrowlanders, 3 Renars, an Irrit, an Avanto, a Quam, and a Torstol.
Wow. Every time?
Every time.
That does sound like the epitome of the dopamine burst for your account.
And actually, it's profitable by about 3,000 gold or so at the moment to buy these keys and use them if anyone out there is a main account.
Oh, really? Yeah, again, it's just slow, like... That is, again, just another great example of a piece of just absolutely dead content. Like, who actually does this content unironically, aside from you and maybe some other like niche case Iron Man? I really don't know.
Well, I think Davidas, a friend, in one of his Iron Man videos, he did actually go and kill Salaran the Twisted, a demi-boss. Because that used to be the only source of Sinister Keys, and it drops them at a rate of 1 in 13. And Salaran the Twisted is such a weird NPC, right? He was released in December 2002, way back in RS Classic. The Herblore skill came out, for reference, about 10 months before Salaran the Twisted did, and it used to be very hard to get herbs. Fun trivia: Herblore used to be spelled Herblaw.
Herblore. You know, to be honest with you, I don't think I ever actually knew that. As long as I've been playing this game, but I've only been playing since 2006.
Hmm.
I can't
Yeah,
say with confidence that I actually knew that. So that's
I think
interesting, I suppose. I don't know
yeah.
why they like. Is that a phonetical pronunciation, or I don't understand what their angle was there. But
I
um,
don't know either. As I say, this dates back to 2002 when it was just the Gower brothers working on this by themselves. Um, but then
huh.
when they updated to RuneScape 2, it changed the name to what we have today.
That's really, really interesting. You know, if anyone listening to
Yeah.
this has an answer to that, like why that change was made and any references, I'd be interested to read about that. So post that below in the
Hmm.
comments if you have an answer to that question. But carry on.
Okay, so the Sinister Key, when it was released, this was like I think a year and a half before the farming skill was released. So
Mhm.
this was literally the only way in the game to get Torstalls.
Wow.
So you'd go and kill Salarin the Twisted, and it's such a weird and dated piece of content now. It's seen no updates really, except a graphical one when they changed to RuneScape 2, because it's a level 70 demi boss. Now, when you hear demi boss, you expect it to be difficult or at least a little bit dangerous.
Yeah.
So you've got stuff like the Chaos Fanatic
Yeah.
and the
Wilderness
Crazy
demi bosses.
Archaeologist,
Right.
or the Deranged Archaeologist on Fossil Island, which killed a friend's hardcore and
Ah.
career,
Amongst other things, but yes.
amongst other things. Um, but yeah, this is a boss that you can kill with the level 1 Wind Strike spell. It has to be strike spells, like the spells that need Mind Rune, that do a guaranteed amount of damage every time they hit, and he has a max hit of 7 and you can safe spot him. It's just the weirdest piece of content that I have interacted with that is mainstream, as it were.
Huh. Well, I mean, that certainly qualifies as unique and also pretty dead content. Now, the one thing that I think I do recall hearing about this piece of content in particular, somewhat recently too, was Sir Pugger, fellow
Yeah,
content creator and YouTuber, actually made a video recently about bot farms at
yeah.
Salarin the Twisted. Is that true?
Oh yeah. Um, Salarin the Twisted is one of the first things I did on my on the account after I decided to go for this goal, because I
Hmm.
wanted to stack up as many noted herbs as I could. And there's a bot in every world, and they're all wearing exactly the same gear. It is atrocious to try and farm there. I actually
Hmm.
had to wait until I had 1250 total to be able to access a new world
Oh, no kidding.
to be able to kill him.
I mean, I suppose that makes sense. That well, that people bought this content because I mean that has to go unmonitored and unseen by players as well. So I
Yeah.
guess out of everything to bot, I suppose that makes sense. Not that I condone botting, of course, but I guess I can
Hmm.
see the reason why people would do it because it probably for the most part goes unseen until he released that video.
Yeah. Most people don't know about it. It's content that basically no one interacts with, so no one really sees it.
That is interesting. But okay, so the Sinister Key is what I suppose provides you the most dopamine out of everything on your account. So
Yeah,
perfect.
just seeing one.
Just
Yeah,
seeing
seeing one
one.
out
Yeah.
of nowhere.
Okay. Yeah, another piece of dead
Great.
content on your account. That's excellent. Um,
Mhm.
is there a point on your account, whether it was like a certain level or maybe a certain gear upgrade or something, that made your gameplay and your pathway to achieving your goal significantly easier?
Not so much easier, just faster. Um,
Aren't
when
those the
I
same thing?
started, well,
What isn't it? Isn't it? Doesn't it? I mean, aren't those kind of like mutually inclusive? That if something gets easier, it also, um, or if something is faster, it gets easier.
not necessarily.
Okay.
Tick manipulation fishing is faster, but it's definitely not easier.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point. Okay.
But yeah, there's a few things that made it faster. There's a few things that made it grindier. I think 60 smithing, which I recently got, is definitely something that helped. Because now I can make cannonballs much more efficiently, which is my best way to train range is to cannon.
Mm.
Um, other than that, it's just every time I find a new thing to do, and that I can actually mention something that's going to be good that I can't do yet, but that I'll be able to do in the future. And that is when I get 80 fishing and a fire cape, I'll be able to fish infernal eels to get lava skill shards to upgrade anti-fire potions.
Oh, again, that's just like, who does that? like who in their right mind looks forward to not only just like infernal eel fishing in particular, but infernal eel fishing so that you can get lava scale shards to upgrade your anti-fire potions. It's just like,
I mean,
oh, man,
it is
that
actually,
stuff blows my mind.
I think it's decent AFK money making for a main, like completely AFK. So
yeah, well, to be honest with you, and to humble brag a little bit, the extended anti-fire potion that you're talking about right now, I believe, to my knowledge, was actually my suggestion back in, I don't know, 2014 or so. For those that don't know too much about my background with RuneScape prior to Caveman, on my main account named Heisenberg, but with an L instead of an I in the name there, I was actually one of the first people in old school RuneScape to get 99 Herblore. And beyond that, I continued to train it because it was actually quite profitable in the early days of old school RuneScape by making Harlander tar, or the black salamander that people used at Barrows, which was like the best moneymaker in the game. But beyond that, though, I continued to train Herblore through Harlander tar and got all the way up to about 30-something million total XP. And I was in the top 10 Herblore ranks for a while. But as I was training, one of the things that I just kind of thought about was just an innocuous kind of upgrade to anti-fire potions, just to make them last longer. And so I pitched it on Reddit, and it made it to a Q&A one day, and lo and behold, it finally came into the game, I think, with lava dragons, whenever that update was. And those were quite profitable and pretty good XP when they first came out as well.
So it's your fault that I have to do this.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's basically my meta for fishing after I get to 80. So
now, you of course have been part of the Snowflake Iron Man community on your account now for quite a while. But what are your thoughts on the growth of this Snowflake community in the last 6 months?
I think it's interesting.
To say the least, yeah. Sometimes I wonder if science has gone too far with some of these accounts that people are creating these days. But
it's really great to see what people can come up with as a restriction. But I think the best thing about it, from my point of view, is there are people out there now that are looking for really weird and obscure ways to train Herblore, and they could find something that's better than what I'm doing.
Okay, so you have a bit of a selfish intent there behind the growth of the community. I mean, it makes sense. Not that it's a bad thing, but
I'm not being selfish in allowing the community to exist. I
right. That's not what I meant, but you know what I mean. But there's a bit of internal motive to to want to see the community grow, because all of these crazy avant-garde accounts might lead you to a new Herblore training meta. That's funny. I have never thought of that.
I don't really think that there will be much better methods than the ones that I've already come up with, or that have already been suggested to me many months ago, because a lot of them are literally 1 or 2 or even 0 experience ways to get Herblore. So
yeah, like you said, it'll probably be hard to beat, but you never know. And especially with the release of new content too, and Prifdiness coming out soon, you have no idea what is possible for future methods. And so, maybe like we were talking earlier with the release of Zolcano, maybe something with that happens, and maybe if you don't have access to it immediately, maybe Mr. Tyrannon only could maybe help you out there or something. But that's really cool. Yeah. That
I just really want to see a Herblore guild.
That could be cool. I'd be on board. Again, like I mentioned a second ago, Herblore was my favorite skill on my main account before I made Caveman, and so I think that the more guilds, the better. I know that Mod West has mentioned in the future, with the next expansion of Zaya, Varlamore to the south, they want to add a hunting guild, which I think could be quite cool. And I think there's room for more guilds and more expansions.
Yeah, I just really want there to be a Herblore guild, because then there will be a place where you can get noted vials of water, noted eyes of newt, and a pestle and mortar all in one place, instead of having to go to 3 different stores.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, where do you see the community 6 months from now, though? Do you think that this Snowflake thing is just a fad? Do you think it's going to die out? Do you see it growing stronger and more prevalent?
I definitely think that there are some accounts that are doomed to failure, not because of their specific goal or build, but because that specific goal or build would be so tedious and time consuming that only the most dedicated person could do it. Mm-hmm. So I do think that a lot of the community might fall just into an observational role as opposed to an active role. Just people that follow other people doing crazy things rather than people doing crazy things themselves. But I think most of the big names in the community, people like Tedious and Verf and Settled and Turtletail, I think they're all going to do really well for themselves from this. And you, of course.
Oh, thank you. I thought you weren't going to say it. Just kidding. Just kidding. Humble only irony.
I thought it didn't need saying because you're successful enough that I'm on your podcast. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. But I do think that what you said there is a really valid and kind of poignant point, that it's a double-edged sword, because one of the things that I think is so special about this community is how active it is. That I think that's what my community in particular, and just the Snowflake community in general, has that a lot of other content creators, both in RuneScape and just in other games in general, don't have, is that it's mostly a passive experience where you just kind of like watch the content and like maybe chime in the chat every once in a while to like see what's going on. But it's not really a very active experience. But with the Snowflake community, there are tons and tons of people right now still joining the community and being an active participant in it. But I do think that you're right, that everyone likes to have a new, novel, unique idea all to themselves. And I don't think there's necessarily a shortage of ideas, but you're either going to have to get really, really creative or be really, really ardent and determined to try and not only just find a novel idea that hasn't been done yet, but also to be able to see it out to its completion or something resembling completion. So I do think that you're right, that we will probably see a transition from a more active community to a more passive community with people just watching and still enjoying, but maybe without participating so much.
I'm starting to get really paranoid that I've missed a really big name that someone that's a good friend of mine, and I'm just
oh goodness. Well, I mean,
if I forgot you, I'm sorry.
I'm sure that whoever you've forgotten probably understands, but
in my defense, it's 2:20 in the morning. I can't be expected to have my brain working properly.
That's very true. And for anyone who's managed to listen this far into the podcast, I'll go ahead and say this now. This is our second take at doing the podcast, because on our first take of doing the podcast, about 45 minutes in, I forgot to push the record button. So
it was more than 45 minutes. We were over an hour.
Was it over an hour? Okay, well,
it was over an hour in.
Regardless, Caveman made an oopsie, and UIM Herblore is 8 hours ahead of me time-wise, so it is now the middle of the night for him. And so but thank you for sticking around this long. I really do appreciate it.
You did remember to press record this time.
Yes, I did.
Right.
just had to leave a little cliffhanger there. Yes, I did. Okay. Anyway, one final question that I want to ask you. I mentioned at the beginning, this is my first podcast interview with somebody who's not an area-restricted Iron Man. But my question to you is that if you were to play an area-restricted account, what type of area-restricted Snowflake would you be?
Is it cheating to say Gilnor only?
Yes, it is.
Right. Honestly, I'd probably go for the easy one, which is Azea only, because that's basically its own continent. It's got every potential skill except for maybe Slayer that you can train there.
Okay, fair play. I mean, picking the easiest area restricted Snowflake when you're going for probably one of the most difficult achievements in like the history of the game. Checks out.
Yeah,
checks out.
It's a little incongruous. I do like the idea of a Mauritania only, but I just don't think I could do some of the grinds that Settled has shown.
Yeah. Yeah, Settled is an absolute beast, and I've been happy to have him on the podcast, and I think it'd be great to have him back in the future once he's managed to achieve some more things on Swamplex. I think that'd be really, really cool to have a follow-up interview.
Yeah. Props to him. I can't imagine doing just one grind for 80 hours just continuously. So well done to him. I have to switch up my content, or I just can't.
Yeah, fair play to you, man. Different strokes for different folks, but that's the great thing about the Snowflake community is that you get to choose your own adventure, make up your own rules, forge your own path, and essentially do whatever you want, which is the beauty of this whole thing. All right, to wrap up here, I know that you're not a traditional content creator in terms of the usual mediums of YouTube and Twitch, but in terms of social media, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Easily Twitter. My handle is @UIM_Herblore. Send me a tweet or a DM if you ever have a question.
Okay, yeah.
That's really it.
Sounds great. Yeah. Again, UIM Herblore's Twitter will be linked down below in the description for you to check out some progress about his account, some beautiful artwork, and the occasional meme or two, of course, as well. Again, James, UIM Herblore, thank you for being here today.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been
a longer interview than we anticipated, yeah. but it was enjoyable the second time just as much as the first. So thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this rendition of the Snowflake Spotlight, a bi-weekly podcast series right here on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to scope out our subreddit, Our Unique Iron Man, in the meantime for your daily dose of ridiculous Iron Man gameplay. Thank you to James, aka UIM Herblore, for taking time out of his day, not only for this interview, but always for helping me create my progress videos. To IG Designs for his background artwork, and you, the listener, for supporting the podcast. I'll see you next time.